to normal. But I think the weather is really typical of the fact that there's a rebirth of tourism. And you mentioned that in Hawaii. And I'm seeing that all over the world. And I think we're seeing that airlines are, again, increasing tremendously, where it was that maybe when you came back from Germany, maybe there were 10 people in the economy section of the plane. But now the flights to places that are open are really full.
Absolutely.
And my daughter is going to Greece, and that flight's really full again. You know, it's a nonstop flight. I'm I'll be in Israel soon, and again, the flight is totally full. So it's kind of an interesting phenomena. I think people want to travel, and wherever is open, they're going to go to travel.
Yeah, and this is definitely a trend right now. And if you see flights, yes, they are going full. On the other hand, they also get expensive. Yesterday,
Yes,
I looked at flight costs to go, for example, to Guam, to our neighbors here, and you cannot get a ticket for less than $2,800, and the flights are empty. So
that's a economy ticket from Hawaii to Guam.
ticket, yes, a business class was 5,800, and I looked at for an entire month every day because sometimes you see various days less. So
Yes,
tickets are expensive. Strangely, also to Europe, it depends where you go. Tickets to Israel, for instance, I checked, are quite reasonable. Tickets to the United Arab Emirates are cheap. You can go from Los Angeles to Dubai on United and Lufthansa for less than $800. If you do get off in Frankfurt and come back from Frankfurt, this fare goes up to almost $2,000. So there are some really shifting in
yes,
price
yes, yes.
structures and so forth.
Yeah, and I noticed to Israel it was around $1,200 in economy, but if you wanted to have business class, it went up to almost $8,000. So the jump was hysterical. It was incredibly big, um, and that was really you could maybe find a bargain at $7,000, but that's quite a lot of money for a 10-hour trip.
Yeah, I think the vaccination is really the key. Americans are step by step feeling more comfortable traveling. I hope our restrictions will be adjusted, that people who did receive the vaccine have an easier way of getting from place A to B. So far, a vaccination certification is still necessary to enter the United States. The United States is still closed for most visitors. So hopefully with the G7 ongoing in Europe, this is something what's on the agenda and will change very soon.
Well, the G7 has ended now, but
Yeah, the G7 results, yes, we're
yes.
hoping.
So we'll have to see what they. I'm not sure they spoke very much about tourism. One of the big things they were interested in is having a universal tax, so that you wouldn't have a corporation going from one country to another, which is kind of scary if you think about a universal tax. Um, but one of the issues that they are going to have to think about, and the real major issue, is energy and the issue of the the inflation in energy. So that's one of the reasons you're seeing this incredible rise in lots of airline prices, because energy prices are going through the roof. And then there's a whole issue, you know, um, we stopped the Keystone pipeline, but then we gave Russia permission to run its pipeline into Europe, which has both geopolitical issues and it has energy issues. So I think that's going to be something the tourism industry may have to face for a while, and that is the fact that there may be very high costs of tickets and of airline tickets, and I wonder how that's going to impact tourism around the world. Maybe people will put it in part of their price, or maybe they'll go by car, and it'll be more domestic travel, and long-term travel may fall apart. Who knows?
Well, I don't know. Right now, the price picture is really unpredictable. You have
Yes, it is.
tickets within the United States are extremely cheap.
Yeah,
I don't think there have been any lower price tickets as long as I can think of
yeah,
in the recent history, and people are using it, and flights are full. So tickets are really not going up in price; they're going down.
Well, they
But
are. We had the biggest jump in prices in the last 20 years. Inflation. Matter of fact, Hawaii is one of the four biggest states that's suffering from inflation, and that's dealing with issues of food, transportation, medical care, and housing. And Hawaii is doing quite poorly in all four of those categories on a national level. I can't speak on an international level, but this was the biggest inflation jump last month we've had in close to 20 years. So there are issues. Flights are irregular in the United States. You're right. Some places you can get, bargains, but on the other hand, some of the flights going to, say, Texas to Washington are incredibly expensive. So it's where you're going and how you're going. But airline travel did go up about 4 to 5% across the board last month, which was quite a big inflation.
yeah, and I did a little bit of comparison in regards to vaccination rates in countries, and where tourism seems to be coming out okay. And North America is definitely one of the countries where we currently have a total of 37.95% as of today of people received at least one dose of the vaccine. If you compare this with the world average of 11.25%, we're three times ahead.
US is doing very well.
And then again, strangely, United Kingdom with really big problems with the new form of the virus has 58.85%, what is quite a bit higher than the United States. And then the topping of our major countries, Israel with 63.03%. So it's tourism between, I think, Europe and North America, I think will relaunch pretty soon. I
Yes.
don't see any more justification of having this delayed as it is right now. Tourism to Asia may be a challenge. And
Yes.
we don't know, and also Australia, these are all areas they're not as
Those are long from the United States. Those are long haul flights. Speaking of Asia, how do you see the Asian tourism world going? I know that we've done some talking about Indonesia in the past, and um, Indonesia was in the pre-COVID world a major tourism attraction, especially Bali. Do you see it coming back soon, or are the Indonesians going to have to come up with some sort of special conferences and other things to kind of make it work?
well, conferences, of course, are exchanges of ideas, and I think this is very necessary for a country like Indonesia, anywhere in ASEAN right now, to do this. And I think Indonesia is proactive in doing this. If you again look at the vaccination rates, Asia only has 7.24%, and Indonesia
Wow.
only 7.19%, what is even below the Asia rating. And then you have Bali, what is a major tourism destination, where the vaccine is almost hitting 30%. So there has been an emphasis on relaunching tourism in countries like Indonesia. So we're going to see some, but then again, how would you really do this? You have to go through an area where the vaccine is very low. You have regions in Asia that are stronger, like Singapore, of course. In this case, like Bali, and and um, and there is no consistency in the world. And talking to one of our colleagues in Hong Kong yesterday, Hong Kong apparently has enough vaccine, but they don't have enough options to actually administer the vaccine.
Wow.
Vaccine is getting bad. So there are so many challenges in making this all work. And so it is important that everyone in the world is talking to each other to make things better. And even if you look at our own backyard, like the Caribbean, vaccination rates in the Caribbean are
Are
quite
very
low.
low,
And
very low.
and I think it would also be a responsibility and in our national interest in the United States to push for higher numbers for this.
Well, there's really in the Caribbean many various issues. One is problems within their national health services, which don't always work very well. In some of the Caribbean countries, you have a large amount of corruption. And so, you send the money or you send the vaccine, and it doesn't get to the people it's supposed to go to, or it's sold on the black market, or whatever, and so that's a real problem. Um, and then the fact is that a lot of these places live on tourism, but they're not necessarily taking very good care. And we see that by the fact that the Caribbean has still a very high crime rate. And then, of course, the Caribbean has another problem, which has some pretty advanced countries, but there's some very unadvanced countries, such as Haiti, which is almost a major basket case within the Western Hemisphere. So one of the issues I thought was interesting is recently there was a cruise to the Caribbean left from the Bahamas, and some of the people ended up getting COVID. And that became also I think it was 2 or 3 days ago. Now, the issue is, did they get COVID on the ship, or did they get off at a port and then brought COVID back onto the ship? And that still has yet to be determined. So that's another challenge that has to be looked at.
Yeah, and the interesting spin on this, when I was looking at the press releases in regards to this from the cruise line, they thought it was a positive bit, because none of the people who actually did have a positive result for COVID were actually sick. They didn't even know they were sick. So
Yeah.
they're saying, okay, the vaccine is working. It's not always a guarantee that you cannot get it.